Well, hi everyone, and welcome to a live version of Coffee with Craig. And I hope a lot of you are able to join me today. And I see you already come in the chat. So, if you're here for the first time, this whole section of our site and things and our YouTube channel is all about topical events and taking a spiritual perspective on it, and also making a few predictions about it and thinking about the world at large. And in particular today, thinking about World War III. Has it already happened? Are we aware it's even started to take place? And what would a World War III be like, particularly with what's happening in the Middle East today? So, welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi guys, and thanks for joining me. I'm going to have a little chat with you first and tell you a few of my thoughts about these things, and then I'll take a few of your questions and some of your comments and things like that. And of course, don't forget, if you come to the show after it's been live, do also put your comments, because I think it's so interesting to see what other people are thinking. Actually, channels like this are often closer to the pulse of what's happening out there than the standard traditional news channels that, strangely enough, seem to not talk sometimes about what I think are some of the most important issues out there, particularly with some of the stuff we're seeing on the UK news, where I'm based in the UK, of course. So if you're new to the channel, I'm a psychic, so I make predictions and things about the future quite a lot of the time. I don't claim to get it all right. Like everybody, I'm fallible, but some of the things I get right have been happening recently, because beginning of in 2022, ready for the predictions for way ahead, I said that in October 2023 we would see what would seem to be like the beginning of a World War III. And actually, on the 8th of October, it was 2023, that is when Israel officially declared war on Hamas. So, in a way, wars don't start in like a press button thing, do they? If you think about it, if you think back to the First World War, it didn't. Okay, when you study it, okay, there was the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. That's what often people say is the start of the First World War. But anybody that studies history know that it was a whole long wind up of a load of things, and the actual first shots weren't fired until really the war was way underway in different ways. Similarly with the Second World War, in the First World War, everybody thought it was all going to be like it was going to be like Waterloo again, with everybody charging in with cavalry, and of course they're all bogged down in trenches. So war's never quite what we think it's going to be. Same with the Second World War. It didn't actually start on, Hitler already invaded Poland before the war really got started. So there's no real starting point, but a kind of October 23 could be seen as one of those trigger points. Maybe even COVID was the start, I think, of what could be considered as World War III, because all sorts of things are happening in the background, and I actually think we're kind of already in it, except we don't see war in quite the same way as they might have done in the past, because some of the newspapers picked up on, psychic predicts the exact date of World War III, and they were saying that about me. New Nostradamus says World War III will start on this exact date. Well, in some respects, yes, it kind of did, but the reality is that the war is not quite what we think it is, because war the war that's around us now is a different sort of war to something we've ever taken into account before. For example, social media has become one of the areas where war is taking place, where people are being influenced, where psychological type of warfare is perhaps happening in the background, a hidden war that we're fighting, civil unrest that we're seeing in the nations around Europe and around America, and the advent of mass migration. Have there been forces behind that to encourage it? I mean, you could certainly look at Russia, for example. They don't take on any migrants; they push them all into Europe. Similarly, Arab countries won't take on any migrants. When we get the mass exodus that we're going to see from Gaza and places like that, where are those people going to go? Are they going to go to the rich countries like Saudi Arabia? Are they going to go to Dubai and all these very rich Arab nations that could take on all these huge immigrants population that's going to be pouring into the nation? No, they don't take a soul. They don't take any Syrians. They don't take any people from all of the from Libya and all the rest. No, they're all pushed into Europe. So there's something going on in the background, isn't there? Why is it that we get this mass immigration, but I think is the cause of social unrest? I've got nothing against these people. These poor people are pawns in a bigger game. But the encouragement of Russia to push people into Europe, the encouragement of the underbelly of Europe being flooded by immigration. And similarly, the same thing strangely happened with all the failed states in South America being pushed up somehow into America. Are there hidden forces behind this? I question. This is why I say, who is our enemy? I worry also about the whole thing of woke and Black Lives Matter and things like this. I don't want to sound racist with this because that's not my intent. These people are as much victims as anybody else. But there are forces in the world, in the background, are there not, that are it's in their interest to see perhaps a third world war. They say, don't they, follow the money. Who has the financial interests in this? Who has the financial interest? What about Wall Street? That's a global thing now. Wall Street would find it very helpful, would it not, if their interests are in places like China, where the money is. Same with the tech industry and all of that. That's all the social media things. It's a global thing. They don't care if the West fails. They're just interested in where the money's coming in, who's filling our pockets with the money. And this is what I think people see as kind of. This is why I say a third world war is very hard to put your finger on a lot of levels, isn't it? Who is the enemy? Who is the enemy out there? Who do we know? Is Hamas the enemy? Yeah, okay, possibly. Islam and ISIS certainly cause an awful lot of trouble. Is Russia the enemy? Well, yeah, they're influencing through social media and things like it. Is China the enemy? Are all of them together with North Korea and axis of evil, as they called them once before? Not for them, but there was another whole lot. Hezbollah, are they enemy? Or is woke the enemy? Is all this kind of mental illness that's going across the world, where political correctness has gone crazy to the point that it's become almost madness? And have these things been hijacked? And have they been hijacked deliberately? Because I think if we're going to win a war with anything, or there is a war, we've got to know who the enemy is, first of all. And this is the strange thing, I think, about the times we live in now. We live in a time where we don't know what's wrong. We don't know why things have gone so crazy. We don't know. All our normal values seem to be thrown out the window. And it makes me wonder that there's something behind all this, that there is perhaps somebody else in the background that wants to benefit from this. I blame, up to a point, global businesses, their manipulation of us with their advertising and adding strange sometimes values into things. I find the war on everything that is historically been our strengths. The weakening of education, for example, the undermining of education. And now we here in the UK, for example, we sell all our education abroad. We don't educate our own. We bring in other people and say our education system can't afford to be what it is. We have to bring in people from other countries, train them up, and we lose our own. We lose all the intelligent people to other countries. So we're giving away everything. We're giving away our knowledge, and we're giving away our training, and we're giving away everything. And around the world, I feel that there is this awful war going on, which we're only just starting to see coming out in new forms. Of course, the obvious forms we see it coming out on is the war in Ukraine. The other obvious one is we see in Israel and Gaza. And of course, what I predicted will come next, and I've been saying about this, that there would be 3 of these, which will be Taiwan, because that's all gonna happen again as well. So it's a very cloudy world. There's very much in the mix, isn't there? And how are we gonna get out of this? And what's gonna happen next? Of course, me as somebody that's psychic has to think about these things a lot and see what will be the consequence of all these things that are going on in the world. I have been saying for a long time that there would be a hit on Iran, and more now people are talking about it. I said the hit on Iran would be done by Israel, actually, to be fair, but I saw a hit on Iran. Maybe it will be Israel, maybe it will be America that will go in. But there's now, which there wasn't before, now there is suddenly a lot of talk about should we hit Iran. That lovely lady that some of you may love, Nancy Pelosi, who has been saying that she thinks that Russia's behind the war in Iran, and we should hit Iran. She was talking about that. So was Nikki Haley talking about, and others, and lots of them urging attacks on Iran. And of course, Iran is the force behind all these things, like Nicola Pelosi. She always reminds me of Nicola Sturgeon. Maybe it's the Nancy Pelosi and Nicola Sturgeon. I always get those two. I think they must have come from the same lab or whatever those sort of people come from. Anyway, I see that there's going to be a hit on Iran. I think it's on the cards. One of the questions I have to ask, because you watch people from America watch American TV, we watch UK TV. We see an ex-Prime Minister Cameron here in the UK, if the Americans might remember him, being in charge now of I can't remember exactly what his role title is now, but he basically deals with foreign affairs. And they're talking about, we've got ex-warmongers in there, and we're also talking about here about national service, bringing back national service. Why would we suddenly be talking about we should bring back possibility of national service? Because we haven't got enough people in our armies and navies in particular. So is that a prelude to something going on in the background? Are the powers that be planning things in the background? Same sort of thoughts are going on in America at the moment. Why do we have to recruit everybody into national service? I said, actually, in one of my other predictions, when I was talking about the future of immigration and things like that, is I saw people having to serve. And this comes to mind as another prediction I made earlier. You might remember I said I saw people who are coming into the country as immigrants having to first serve in the army, and that they might have to do a period of national service. Now it's all coming over the press. Was what I seeing going to come to pass? That people that that would be a quick way to make people more British, as it were, if you came to a country, or more Swedish or more American or whatever, put them in the army. And it would also discourage people from illegally coming into the country. It would become less nice if, instead of just getting a nice house, pat on the back, and a load of social security, you actually had to work for your citizenship, as they used to do in ancient Rome. Now, I mean, that's again abusing people's people around the world. I mean, it's I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not encouraging it. I'm not saying this is something should happen. I'm just saying this is something that seems to be coming into the etheric, as it were, coming into the world. This idea of pushing, having two classes of citizen, perhaps, it could be there. It could be coming, couldn't it? Because once something big happens, then there's excuses to bring all these things into action. And I wonder why the press is not talking about it that much, really. There's not that much being talked about it. When you look at the headlines, they seem to be important things, but not these huge issues that are happening internationally. And so, it makes you wonder. And also, when I look at some of the politicians in all around the world, it's as if they're perhaps almost looking for a fight. I mean, Iran is looking for a fight in some ways because it would do them a lot of good. Because in Iran, we have all the women protesting there, do you remember? And now that's all gone quiet. Iran was becoming quite westernized. Iranians don't like that. Same thing happened before we got this Gaza business. All this blew up because Saudi Arabia was becoming a little bit more friendly to Israel and saying, well, maybe we should stop all these fights. So those people in the background think, hey, we don't want this. It's not in our interest to have Israel and Saudi Arabia friends. It's not in our interest to have women's rights evolving in Iran, is it? So the whole idea is, well, we need a war. And some of the more foolish politicians seem to think that maybe it's a good idea because, we put American troops, for example, in harm's way, and some American troops have been shot down by drones. And now here we have, suddenly we have an excuse that we could hit back. And bumbling Biden there is not giving any answers about what he wants to do. It's not really in his personal interest to go to war, because it's going to be very unpopular on some levels that he goes to war and couldn't hold it together, because once you open that bag of worms, that Pandora's box of Iran, all sorts could blow up, couldn't it? If we might think, oh, right, go in and hit the drones, go in and hit their nuclear power stations where they're preparing nuclear bombs. We need to hit that. Israel would like us to hit that. America would love, a lot of Americans would love to hit that, but what a bag of worms that could be, because other people have interests. Russia has interests with Iran too, doesn't it? It's getting its drones from there. China clandestinely is buying, getting influences all through Africa and the Middle East, but in particular, it wants Iranian oil. It needs oil, while the West is all getting windmills out. China is pumping everything into the sky, making its plastics and the rest of it, selling it to us and undermining our world. So what I'm saying is, and I don't know how you feel about that, is there people in the background encouraging war? Are there people in the background who it's in their interest financially, and who is the enemy? Who is it? What is the objective of a war? The objective of this war seems to be the downfall of the West. It seems to be division. It seems to be creating divisions between peoples. I think immigration is part of that, to help encourage that division. They encourage division between beliefs and encourage the end of nationhood and encourage the end of dominance of anybody that has any traditional qualifications and roles in life. Everything seems to have to be turned on its head, doesn't it? I also see, I feel that I think they will strike Iran. My feeling is I've been seeing that for a while, and I feel that is going to be the big one, and it's going to be big. Meanwhile, my thoughts are that this is also in China's interest, because China would love to see us draining all our resources in the West and putting all our hardware in there and throwing all our money into companies like Lockheed and pushing more and more armaments into those areas, which basically is going to deplete our resources, create more social division in our countries. And meanwhile, in the background, the communist Chinese Communist Party is, keeping up the economy. It's taken the eye off how bad things are in China. It's taken everybody's eye off the idea that there's going to be a huge, difficult economic breakdown because of the property market in China and all the other things that have been swept under the carpet. Keeps us ticking along for a while. And meanwhile, we can also in China do what we want to do, which is going to be go into Taiwan, because all the resources of the world are going to be tied up in the Middle East and Ukraine and other fights around the world, and with the division that could be happening in our own countries. So it's in their interest. Surely it's in their interest, as our economy bleeds money into these things. So China grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I can't see at the moment anybody who's in power at the moment getting us out of this mess, because I can see them only taking us deeper and deeper into this mess. And that's why I've been, it's almost, I said these things and now they're kind of becoming revealed to me, because I only see through a mirror darkly, as I often say. I only see the edge of things. I get the feel of what's coming up. I feel it like sometimes like clouds, I say, coming over the world. And it's that sort of feeling. But I can't see anybody coming out of it. But I feel another thing that I want to say at the moment is I feel that there is going to be a hit on some American military shipping. They've already hit it down by Aden and down all that way. Forgotten the name of it. All down that. They've already hit the shipping down there and causing all sorts of disruption. But I'm seeing actual American military target being hit by what I'm seeing is something underwater rather than drone. So it might be a mine or something like that. I see something where there's something hit with a battleship being struck. And I'm also feel, and I got a sense it's happening now, but I've got a sense I've said this in some of my earlier predictions, that there would be an attack on banking. I'm getting the feeling there's a big cyber attack actually happening now. And we're not aware of it. I feel it's going to be in the news soon, that there's a big cyber attack happening. Obvious things it will hit will be banking and things like that. But I feel it's coming through social media too, that there's like fake profiles and things like that. People, posing as fake celebrities and then getting into your account, switching down putting things on your computer or switching you down or taking your money and things like that. Those cons, as it were, I feel there's some political stuff behind it. Maybe North Korea will be in this as well. So these are some of the thoughts that I have about the way the world's going. And I feel that, these are some of the things I feel happening in the way ahead. I think we will get a strike this year on Iran, and whether that blows up into the same horrors as what happened in Afghanistan, or the same horrors that happened in Iraq, and the same failures, because it don't work in the end of the day. Whether that's going to happen and how far it will go, I don't know yet. But I feel that something is being plotted in the background, and I think someone like Biden, for example, will have no option except to do something, because the world sees him as a bumbling fool, and I feel that it's one of his ways of trying to save his face, and I think it will be his downfall. And frankly, if Trump gets in power, I think he would sort it out, but he'd do it in a different way. I think he would say war is for losers, because actually it is losers, because everybody that goes to war ultimately loses. His way would be to economically dominate the world and bring down the negative evil forces in the world by starving them of their resources. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts, and I'll take a few of your comments and questions now, which I can see bubbling away on the side of my screen here in your chat bit. So let's have a look. Just your comments and questions you can ask. Oops. There we go. Lost my screen for a minute there. Have I got that? Oh, not coming up. Hang on. Hang on. Oops, here we go. Biden foreign policy is run by Obama, folks. Okay. And how did that work out? In fact, who is actually running the USA? And this is the other question, isn't it? Who is behind it? You know, I think a lot of it's to do with money, isn't it? Really, I mean, America's been run on money, and money equals power. And um, who the bad guys, I think, are the ones. When you look at Facebook and all what's going on with that, one weeny little guy having such a huge influence over the world, and all the big money. They're not interested in countries anymore because it's a global economy. So we don't care about countries. That means if it's a global economy like that, and the financial institutions are running the world, we can't vote for that, and we certainly don't vote for it with our money. Uh, well, I don't think it's going to get closed yet, but I predict that Trump will come back into power, and I think it will get closed then, and close fast. Actually, I know I sound a bit sort of Republican, even though I'm English. But I do think this is. I'm not saying this because that's what I believe or necessarily. I say what I feel I see, and I feel that this is, and I see it in Europe too. I see a big. In my earlier predictions, I've said the big swing to what we call the right here in Europe. Right wing thinking, because people are. It's gonna change. It's gonna change the attitude towards immigration generally. Generally, as for woke, I'm proud to be. Government are making billions from human suffering, cause division and distractions, in my opinion. Yeah, I think we don't get the truth. That's the thing. I think we don't get the truth. The truly wealthy don't appear in the Sunday Times rich list. They are in the shadows. This is something more and more people feel now. I mean, there's an awful lot of um, uh, theories about who is this Illuminati, who are these people behind all this. Are the people who live in the shadows? And actually, when I mean, I when I worked in graphics years ago, I used to specialize in the marketing stuff with financial services industries, and I talked to I worked on annual reports. I was my specialism, and used to do the graphics for them, things like that. And some of the stuff I used to hear about of money, I said, well, how do you want to be paid, Craig? We could pay you by routing some money through South America, and then we can pay it back through Holland, and then we bounce it back through this, and you can pay it, and you don't pay tax on it. What? I didn't do any of that. But the thoughts of what did go on, I thought, well, this is pretty horrific. And what happens on a big scale, Um, What will happen to Israel? Well, I think Israel are going to go the full way with what's happening in Gaza. They're just going to keep on and on and on until somebody stops them, and I don't think anyone's going to stop them. And they're going to pummel that into the dust until all of the money that has been put. See, huge amounts of money have been put into Gaza in the past, and all that funding has gone into what? What do we see? We see a huge underground network of defensive and offensive weaponry, in a way. That tunneling is a form of weaponry, and that's where all the money went. So Israel's just going to go in there and destroy it. And I think we've already seen corruptions in the money that's going in now to help the people that are in distress. It's not the fault of the people of Gaza entirely. It's the fault of the people who have become what we call Hamas. But again, it's a muddy thing. It's one person Hamas and one not, or people a bit Hamas and for Hamas or anti-Hamas. So I think what Israel's thought, Israel thinks, we've had enough. We don't want a Palestinian state. We've had that. We've offered it on the table for years and years and years. We've had enough. We saw slaughter of our people. The Jewish people don't forget, because they've been told never to forget what happened before, never again, never must it happen again. And a sort of an anti-Jewish mini Holocaust happened, attacking all those poor people in the kibbutz and things. And that's enough. We're not going to forget, and we're going to flatten the place. And I think Israel will keep on, and it might even spill over into Lebanon, and it might even spill over into the West Bank, because Israel has had enough. And America knows that they can't hold them back. The dog has been let out now, and it's going to go on and on and on. And their revenge is going to be unrestrained. And America's going to have to choose its side, and it knows it's going to choose the side of Israel, and that's why I see it escalating, unfortunately. Hamas was created by Mossad to split the negotiation position of the PLO. Yeah. I mean, one hell of a lot of stuff went on with the politics of all what went on there. US veteran soldier Col MacGregor is making the same commentary on world affairs. All right. Disagrees with your thoughts and predictions. We'll see productive world peace talks. Well, that's interesting. So I don't get the American news like you guys do. You can only get bits and pieces. Oh, that's kind of you. Thank you for that. That's always nice when people give a little monetary help. I feel like a bit of a beggar when people put things like that up, but it is kind of you when you support the channel like you do, guys. Thank you. And thank you also again to all the patrons and that who help in the background so much. And here's an interesting one, I think. I really feel for Ukraine. What will be the end game of this terrible war with Russia? And really, it is a terrible war with Russia, isn't it? And you see, a lot of those people in that side of Ukraine actually are very much Russian supporters. I mean, that whole slither down that side of Ukraine is a mix of Ukrainians and Ukrainian Russians. And so it's a more complicated situation there, I feel, than the world does actually see it. We just see it as land boundaries, but there's also cultural boundaries there too. And I think in the end of the day, I get the sense that the war will be wound up eventually, but I think Russia will keep some of the territory. It won't be able to completely free Ukraine. I feel coming up soon, we've got Europe's talking about whether they should put any money in. And I think Europe will, and I think America will too, but it won't be as much as was hoped for. And there's corruptions on all sides, in Ukraine as well as in Russia. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. That's very nice when people do that. Ting. Yeah, so what else? We can just see if we catch any other guys here. Oops, I click one and I hit another often. Canada? Oh, well, that's a different topic. Sorry, I hit a wrong one, but that's all right. I think Canada going to get involved in this, actually. Eventually, I think Canada's going to be. I think a lot of the nations of the world are going to be sucked into the Middle East. I'll say it drains our resources, doesn't it? You know, I get a feeling Crimea will remain Russian, and that's sad to say. Certainly at this early stage, I think it's going to, and maybe further down the line, things might change because there might be a second Ukraine war further down the line. We're talking a long way ahead, but this whole idea, the Crimea was always we had the Crimean War ourselves over it. Right. Well, I think I'm going to finish there, and I'm going to say thank you to you guys. I'm also coming up soon. Jane and I, this Friday, we're going to do a sort of a different sort of show for our Friday show, and that we're going to do live clairvoyance online. So we're going to, those of you that are patrons, if you're watching this, I know noticed a few of you patrons there. You can come in on Zoom. I'll give you a link if you come in, if you let me know on the patron site, and we can do our readings on Zoom to you. So it'll be more personal readings, and also some of those in advance readings that we do, and that should be quite fun, daunting to do live online. So anyway, thanks for joining me live today. I'm going to try to make one every single week of these sort of type of coffee with Craig's. Probably going to go out on a Tuesday generally. So watch out for your inbox on Tuesdays if you want to join me live. Okay, guys, thanks. See you again soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, The Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg, and of course there it is, all in the press today. A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023.